Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Alex. Welcome to the Level 1 of Google's Fundamentals training. We're going to be looking at Unit 8 today, how to measure, understand, and share student data. We're going to be focusing on Google Sheets and Google Forms today. Let's get started. Tracking growth. One of the most basic universal goals of teaching is to help our students grow and become better learners. We routinely collect information from students, parents, and even other teachers to show this growth. However, recording and reporting on this data can be extremely time-consuming. This unit addresses ways to increase efficiency and save time when measuring student progress. Teachers have always aggregated student scores with summations and averages. In fact, many teachers already have electronic gradebooks that calculate results for them. Without duplicating these teachers' existing workflows, Google tools can collect additional types of student data to be stored and analyzed. These include attendance, contact information, behavior reports, parent communication, and examples of student work itself. Creating a gradebook using Google Sheets. Using Google Sheets, teachers can build a simple gradebook to track student scores. To do this, create separate columns for student demographic information like their name and student ID. Then for each assignment, add a new column to record their grades. Having the columns set up like this will make life easier when you need to analyze the student data using functions like sum and average, which I will show you later in this video. Classroom checks with Google Forms. Google Forms provides an easy way for teachers to do a quick class check and see which areas of a lesson the teacher needs to focus on. We can accomplish this by creating a new form and starting with a short answer question asking for the students' names. We can also add multiple choice questions about the content covered in the lesson. Then view the live form for proofreading. Then share this link with your learners and have them take the quiz. To see the results of our quiz, we could then click on Response, Summary of Responses within Google Forms. Protecting data. Sometimes you want to keep data safe from being manipulated. You've worked hard to collect accurate data, so making sure it doesn't get changed is important. Using protected ranges and sheets, which I will show you later in this video, you can lock down certain cells or even the whole worksheet full of information so that they can be viewed but not edited. Or you could enable editing rights for some parts of the sheet while other areas remain locked down and cannot be changed. You may have developed rubrics to assess your student presentations. These are very popular when basing assessments on standards or common themes across students. The traditional view of a rubric is of a table with the criteria down the rows and levels of success across the columns. Have you considered switching that rubric from a table into a Google form? Your form can include a drop-down list of your students and any other demographic information. Then, create one question for each criterion as a multiple choice question with other values or levels, such as approaches, meets, or exceeds. When a student is presenting, simply fill out the form and the data is automatically collected in the Google Sheet. After each student finishes their presentation, use the Submit Another Response link to move to the next presenter. You're now assessing your students from one location, in one form, and in real time. You could even take this idea to the next level and have students peer or self-assess using a similar form. All right, hi everybody. I hope the beginning of that video was inspirational and gave you some tools that you can use in your classrooms. In the second part of this video, we're going to be looking a little bit more in depth at how you could work with Google Sheets and how you might use it to work with data. So I've supplied a link in this video so that you could copy my data sheet. So we're going to look at the tab that says My Health Record. So in it, I've got some different columns along the top, and I've got rows along the side. Typically, when we're working with a spreadsheet, we refer to one row as one entry. So you can see that on this entry here, on 1/8/2018, we can see that I did 4 sit-ups, 5 push-ups, 3 burpees, and 9 jumping jacks. On the next entry, on the next day, you can see the next set of exercises that I did, and so on and so forth, all the way down with a list of different days. So again, our key vocabulary word here is row, column, and row is interchangeable with entry. If you're working with your students, the entry here that we might see instead of date would probably be the student's name. Now down below I've got some colorful different rows that we're going to be working with using formulas. So the first one I'd like to show you is called average. What we're going to do is we're going to click on the first cell right here, and we're going to look at the average number of sit-ups. So whenever we do a formula, we always start with the equal sign. And you know what's just so smart about Google Sheets here is it's already figured out that this is supposed to be an average because I have the word average, and it sees that there's actually a big chunk of data right here. So if we wanted to be a little bit lazy, we could go ahead and click this and it would do the work for us. But before we do that automated sort of process, I'm going to show you how you can write it by hand so that we can understand it a little bit better. So again, we're going to start by writing equals, and we're going to write the word average with an open parenthesis, or if you're in the UK or some other countries in the world, you might call that a bracket. So we're going to say again, equals, average, open parenthesis or bracket. And now there's this little cheat sheet that pops up that kind of talks us through how to do it. So what it says is value 1, example, average, and it shows us a range of cells. So A2 would be like A2 to A100. So A and then all the way down. So that's just an example. In this case, we don't want to add up dates. We want to add sit-ups. So what we're going to do is actually just go ahead and click and drag and highlight across all those different cells. So now we can see equals, average, open parenthesis, B2, colon, meaning 2, B15 as the last cell. Then we're going to use a closing parenthesis or a closing bracket. And now we can go ahead and hit enter. So did you see it think for just a second as it calculated up our average? And there we go. So the average number of sit-ups that I can do is only 3.9. Oh my gosh, I better start exercising a little bit more. So what we could do is actually write it out by hand for each of these different exercises, but why do that? Computers are actually quite good at finding patterns and filling things out for us, sorting and organizing data. So what we're going to do is actually click on that first formula, and there's this little blue box down the corner. Let's click and let's drag that over to the right. So what Sheets was able to do is figure out, well, I'm going to add up these things and find the average of each of them. Let's try double clicking on how about push-ups, and notice how it adjusted it to C2 to C15. Let's try this one. For burpees, it also adjusted it from D2 to D15. So D2 to D15. Look at that. So it must have also done it for column E. Pretty cool. So what we do is we teach it once what we're looking for, and then we just fill it out from there. So here's a really cool way that we can do the last 3 sets of formulas. So median, let's go ahead and write median. Choose our range, close the bracket, and hit enter. We're going to do mode again as the next one, mode, and choose our range, close the parenthesis, and hit enter. We're going to add the number of sit-ups I've done all together with sum. And there we go. So now what we can do is let's select those next 3 right here, median, mode, and sum. So I've got them all selected. So I just clicked and dragged. And now there's my little blue box in the corner. Let's just drag them over and look at that. It's done all of my calculations for me across the board. So if I double click, it's looking at column C. If I double click, it's looking at column D, column E. Look at that. It's fantastic. It's figured out for every single one of these formulas what I was looking for. That's awesome. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to show you is how to do sort and filter. Let's right-click on my health record, and let's go up to duplicate. All right, what I'm going to have you do next is actually just delete these formulas down at the bottom by going down to delete. Okay, so our record should look something like this. Next, I'd like you to click on row number 1 choose View, Freeze, One Row. Now, did you notice there's a kind of a gray line that popped up? Try scrolling down. Do you notice how the different exercises are always visible there? That's called freezing. Okay, so currently we have everything organized by column A. We can see that we have the oldest date up to the most recent date. But what if we wanted to sort sit-ups and see, well, which day did I do the most and which day did I do the least? Let's try selecting column B, and then there's this little arrow that appears. Click it. Let's go down to sort A to Z. So A would be the smallest value, Z would be the biggest value. Or you can sort biggest to smallest. Let's try biggest to smallest because I want to see when I did my most sit-ups. So now all of our records have been rearranged. Because I've got the date, at any time I could go back to organizing by date, but currently I have things organized by the number of sit-ups. So here I could see, ooh, wow, these days right here, I was able to do 9, 8, and 7. So on 114, 117, and on 111. So what was I doing on 114? I had a good day. I was really strong. Then on the converse, I could look down at 121 and say, 0, what was going on that day? Why couldn't I do any sit-ups? Maybe I had worked out a lot the day before. I wonder what was going on. So we could do a similar process for each of the different sit-ups or exercises. The next thing I'd like to show you is something that's called filter. Let's try selecting the push-ups range. And then there's this little button. It looks kind of like a triangle or kind of like a funnel. Let's click on that. And do you notice how now the column has appeared green and there's this little kind of triangle that appears? Let's click that. So now we can sort by different styles, different ways. We can also go down to filter by value. Let's click clear so nothing has a check mark down below. Notice how those check marks disappear? So now what I want to see is on what days could I do 9 push-ups? Remember we had push-ups selected. So let's say, show me which days I could do 9 push-ups. Let's go ahead and click OK. Wow, only one day I was able to do 9 on 120. Okay, let's try clicking that little funnel again. Let's say, show me the days that I could do, I'm going to actually say clear again, sorry. I'm going to choose 9 again. 8, oh man, I never had 7 or 6. Okay, so show me the days I could do 9 and 8 push-ups. Okay, so there are a few. So you notice how our kind of our data set here looks like they've disappeared. All the other things that don't fit that criteria are kind of gone. It's just because the filter's on. So by indicating that I would like to just view my records that had specific criteria, kind of makes my life a little bit easier in kind of adjusting my attention into different areas. So that's sort and filter. The next thing I'd like you to do is go over to the next tab inside the Google Sheet that I've shared with you called Gradebook. We're going to do another formula. Let's try clicking over here on G2. And the formula I'd like you to try out is called unique. This is one of the things that I use quite often in many different scenarios. Unique will scan a list of data and it will tell you what the unique values are. So if there's something that's repeated more than once, it will only show it one time. So if we have a list of a bunch of entries, we can see who are the unique people. We can see the unique types of answers, anything you can think of. So we're again going to start with equals, unique, open parenthesis, and then go ahead and just click and choose a range. So I'm going to choose student ID. I'd like to see if I have the same number of students as the same number of IDs that I have. So I'm going to choose that range for student ID and hit enter. There we go. It spit them all out. So there's something that's interesting that's catching my attention. I noticed that there's one less than the number of students that I have. So to me, that must indicate that I have somebody who's repeated more than once over here. Let's try unique in another way. Unique we don't always use with numeric data like this, but let's try selecting and highlighting and seeing for the different grade levels that I have. Let's see. Oh, well, there you go. So I have 10th, 11th, 6th, 7th, 9th, 8th, and 12th graders. Well, let's try sorting that. That's like so random and it's out of order. So because this is still a formula, something people often get tripped up with is if they try to work with this, it's going to be all confused because it's still a formula. So let's take this. We're going to copy it. Let's paste it over here by going to Edit, Paste Special, Paste Value Only. So now that we have that selected, let's right-click and go down to Sort Range. This is so cool, so much fun. Sort Range, sort by column J, yes. A to Z, okay, so smallest to largest. Let's go ahead and click Sort. So I've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it looks like I have all secondary grades represented. But what if we tried to sort that unique formula that we've tried playing with earlier? What would happen if I did that? Let's try Sort Range. Cool, all the same settings. It didn't like it. So do you notice how I copied and pasted it and it was able to work with it as values, but as a formula, it got kind of messed up. So I'm just gonna delete that. I've got my answers right here. Awesome. So next, I wrote grades and number of students up at the top. So I would like to know how many of these different grades do I have? So one way that I could do it is by using count A. So that's like saying count amount. So I could just write count A and choose a range. But that's not quite accurate. That's saying how many students do I have. So if I want to actually find out how many students I have in each of the different grades, I would say equals count if, and now choose the range. I'd hit comma, and then the next box shows me that I can choose my criterion. So I just choose the next box right next door. Hit close parenthesis and enter. This shows me that I have one student who's in 6th grade. So just as we saw earlier, I can pull my formula down and I can see that I have one student in each of these different grades because it's smart about filling down the formula. So that's pretty awesome. So for this next part, let's go ahead and jump back to the first tab called My Health Record. Go ahead and click here. And what we're going to find out with this is I want to know if my number of jumping jacks was more than, let's say, 5, then I want it to say good job. And if it was less than 5, then I want to say not yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something called an if statement. So we're going to write equals if and start our formula expression. And our logical expression is, so if this cell, now we're going to use the more than expression. So if this cell is more than 5, comma, then do what? Say, great job. So I did that with quotation marks to indicate that this is just words. It's not any kind of data. So if it's more than 5, then say good job. Then comma, value if false. So if it's not more than 5, then say, quote, not yet, end quote. Close the parenthesis and hit enter. Hey, great job. Look at that, 9 is more than 5, so great job. And we can pull and fill that down. So we can see all these great jobs and not yet. Ooh, there are probably a lot more not yets than great jobs there. So the final thing that I'd like to show you is what if we didn't want our students to edit the formulas down at the bottom or these kind of statements. So what we can do is let's start by highlighting all the formulas here. Then let's try right-clicking and say Protect Sheet. Let's go over to Range, and you see how the range is already input for you. Now let's click Set Permissions. Restricted. Who can edit those cells? Only the teacher, only you. Let's go ahead and click done. So now if we share this with a student, he or she cannot change those formulas. Let's do the same thing with these. So great job, not yet. Let's highlight, choose protect, choose range, and set permission. Restrict who can edit, only you. You can change to custom, so you can write people's email addresses if you want specific people to be able to edit. But in this case, let's choose only you. Done. All right, you made it to the end of all of the formulas. Next up, we're going to be looking at how to generate some beautiful looking visuals of your data. So to generate some beautiful looking visuals, we start by selecting our data. So let's try selecting the names of the exercises, the dates that we did them, and then our data range. Next, there's this cool little button up here that looks like a box with a little bar graph inside of it. Let's go ahead and click that. So Google Sheets will look at what type of data you have, and it will automatically create the one that it thinks is best. You know, it's often correct. It often creates one that looks good. So let's take a look at what it came up with. And if it's not quite the right one, let's see what else we can do. So this one has our key up at the top of the different exercises. Wow, jumping jacks, look at that. One day I did quite a bit more than any other day. That's really interesting, on the 16th. So I'm gonna just move my video right over here. So now we can just kind of move this around in our spreadsheet. Let's try clicking and dragging it over here. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Let's click on it, and now under chart type, we can start to see that we have some other options here. So we have kind of a smoother option. So we have a bar graph with kind of some different trend lines, combo chart. Boy, I'm not necessarily sure what that one's showing me. Interesting. So I like this one because it's kind of like a combination between a pie chart and a bar graph, where each line represents 100%, and then each of these different colors represent different exercises on that day. So what this shows me is that I did a lot more jumping jacks than any other exercise on this day. And then you can see over here that the jumping jacks in comparison, like the ratio of jumping jacks to other exercises, were a lot less. So we can kind of see some different sorts of comparisons there, like a comparison between pie charts in a sense. I'm not necessarily sure that that's so informative, like the ratio of different exercises. Here's a pie chart. Boy, this is really not helpful with this particular type of data. So what I'd like to just really encourage you to do is dig through all these different cool types of charts and find the right one that represents your data the best. Finally, when you go over to customize, there are all kinds of cool things that you can do. You can change background color and fonts. You can make it 3D. You can see all these different fun things that you can play with to really customize and make it the best possible that you can possibly make it, because this is a visualization of your data that tells stories, that helps people to understand it. So I think that if I were to choose one, I might go with Google's recommendation. I think this one is pretty helpful for me. I'm just going to shrink that down, move it around a little bit. Okay, so now what if I wanted to share this with people? I could copy and paste this into a Google slideshow. I can even email it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose copy. So I'm going to click copy on my keyboard, jump over to my email, click compose, and I can hit paste. And after it thinks for a moment, I've got a beautiful looking chart right inside my email. Well, that's all that we have time for today in today's video lesson. I hope today has been informative and helpful. All right, see you in the next unit, everybody. Bye.
If you liked this video and would like to check out more, please visit my YouTube channel by going to gg.gg/MrAlexYouTube. Thank you.